Welcome, my friends, to another Walking Dead discussion video. And in today's video, I want to talk about how the Walkers have changed, or how I believe the Walkers have changed. You know, all the way from Season 1 to present day Walking Dead. Now, of course, the most obvious way the Walkers have changed is in appearance. At the start of the series, the Walkers were a lot fresher, less decayed, and you know, that was obviously because the apocalypse had just started. These were all fresh zombies that had recently turned, and of course, years down the line, they're going to be more decayed, more weathered, that kind of thing. And of course, you know, that's fairly obvious, that's just a given. But when I say I want to look at how the Walkers have changed, I'm not talking about, you know, in their appearance over the years. I kind of want to focus on how they have been changed and how the original plans for the Walkers have changed. You know, essentially their original purpose has been changed. Okay, so for this video, we're going to need to head all the way back to the start, to what I believe is the best season, Season 1. Now, I'm sure most of you are aware, but The Walking Dead originally had another showrunner, and his name was Frank Darabont. You know, and he was the showrunner for Season 1 and about half of Season 2 before he was fired. He was fired halfway through Season 2. There was a whole bunch of issues with him and AMC and just their whole relationship in general. You know, I will most likely make a video on this whole situation regarding him later, because there's just so much to go through with that kind of stuff, and it's a topic deserving of its own video, to be honest. So anyway, Frank Darabont was the original showrunner for The Walking Dead, and to me it's very clear that he had something else in mind for the Walkers, and honestly it's a shame that his vision for the show was kind of, you know, cut short, because Season 1 was so good. Now, before I continue, what I'm talking about in this video is what I believe the original plans for the Walkers were. It hasn't been stated anywhere by Darabont what his original intentions were for the Walkers, but from what I've watched of, you know, his version of the show, Season 1 and part of Season 2, it's clear he had something else in mind. You know, this is all based on scenes I've picked up from Season 1 and 2 mainly. Okay, so now that's out of the way, let's continue. So from watching the show now, you know, good old Season 8, it's clear that the Walkers, you know, at this point are just mindless husks driven by insatiable hunger. There isn't really much else to them. You know, they pop up a few times an episode so a character can, you know, quickly cut them down for a bit of action during the episode. And, you know, that's honestly about it. That's all the Walkers do nowadays. The show has very much, you know, driven off the Walker path, and it's mainly now about just humans during this apocalypse. But you know, I think originally there was more to them than the animals we see today. I think that the Walkers originally retained their intelligence, along with their humanity to some degree. During Season 1 especially, we saw multiple instances of Walkers still being connected to their human self. You know, we saw things like that little girl Walker picking up her teddy bear, you know, almost like those girls' memories were still trapped in the Walker. You know, Rick even thought she was still a human, you know, for a short time there before she turned around. You know, we see this again with Morgan's wife. She turns the doorknob to her own house. So not only does this Walker know how a doorknob works, but the Walker, you know, also remembers which house was hers. You know, there's still some humanity locked away in there that was driving this Walker to her old memories. You know, and I think this was a really interesting idea, you know, and I would have loved to see it explored more. One of my favourite things in The Walking Dead is when we get to explore the, you know, the psychology of the Walkers. But, you know, it rarely happens, especially now. You know, I loved all the scenes in the CDC where they were looking at the brain of the Walker, looking at how the virus spreads in the brain, you know, all that good stuff. And you know, there was a very interesting scene in Season 2 that I have clung to, and I don't see anyone else mentioning it, you know, ever. No one's ever talked about the scene, but for some reason it's just stuck with me. It's during the scene where Rick kills Shane, and is where Shane begins to turn. During this scene, we actually see what's going on in Shane's head while he is turning. First, Rick kills Shane, and after he dies, there is nothing. There's just black on the screen. This is supposed to represent, you know, the nothingness in Shane's brain, you know, while he is dead. But then we begin to see images appear, you know, images of Walkers ripping apart flesh and eating what I guess is humans and, you know, human corpses. And then after these, you know, images play in Shane's head, after he sees them, he resurrects as a Walker. Now, in all honesty, this is probably one of the most interesting things in the whole of The Walking Dead show, and no one seems to talk about it, but I've just clung to it for so long. You know, it's a very short scene and it happens quite fast, but it is so interesting to see the view from inside the mind of someone who is actually turning. We actually see the process, and it's very hard to put your finger on what's happening. You know, what causes these images of these Walkers to play in the mind once you die. It's honestly, it's very weird and hard to explain, and I think that might have been what they were going for. You know, I just think all of you should probably watch the scene. I'll put a link to the description to the scene I'm talking about. Go watch it, you'll probably understand what I'm talking about. It's almost like as soon as you're dead, these images are put into your head, and after, you know, after these images, after you've seen them, that's all your instinct is what those images are, of, you know, eating flesh. Like, that's all you have now, is that instinct. It was weird, honestly. It was it's quite hard to put your finger on what that means and what they were trying to go for when they were showing you that. Again, weird but very interesting. Go check it out. We've never seen anything quite so similar to that again in the show. Probably one of my favourite parts. So yeah, we've seen a big change in how the Walkers behave from Season 1 and 2 to, you know, present day Walking Dead Season 8. You know, we see the Walkers originally holding onto some level of their intelligence and some level of their humanity. Now, some might say that, you know, they had this intelligence early on due to the fact that, you know, they were fresher walkers, less decayed, their brains were less decayed than they are now, you know, which I would say is definitely a fair point, but I feel like if that was the case, then we would see their intelligence more gradually decline over the seasons. You know, we go from Season 1 and 2, where they're opening doors, picking things up, using rocks to smash windows, to Season 3, where they are just now complete husks with no intelligence whatsoever. You know, even the fresh walkers that appear in later seasons, you know, they're just as dumb as the walkers that turned at the start of the apocalypse. So I don't know, it seems to me that the original showrunner had very different plans for the walkers, and after he left, they just decided to scrap those ideas. Anyway, my friends, if you like what you see, feel free to leave a like, and if you do want to see more, consider subscribing. If you want to interact with me outside of YouTube, feel free to follow me on Twitter. There will be a link in the description. My friends, your viewership is always appreciated. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye for now.